What's up, YouTube? It is time for a new review, and this one is one I get asked about a lot, and it is a saddle. This one in particular is the Tethrd Mantis along with the Predator platform, and I want to first off say that I'm borrowing this. This is Logan's saddle setup. You know, I'm like everybody else. You know, I've been interested in it, but I didn't feel like it helped me enough to spend $400 just to try it. So I feel like I'm in a good position to give an unbiased review. I want to like it, I want to see the value, but I didn't spend the money on it, so I don't feel obligated to like it. So the plan is I'm going to go over some of the basics, give you some of my initial thoughts, concerns, things I like, things I don't like, when I would use it, why I would use it, maybe do some weight comparisons between this and my Assault. And then hopefully we're going to go to the woods, test it out, and then maybe hunt out of it tonight so we can get a really good feel for what it's like to shoot out of it, what it's like to hunt out of it, what it's like to film out of it, so on and so forth. So let's get into it. Okay, first things first. For those of you that may not know what a saddle is, it's essentially a harness that you wear, and it is actually a substitute for your safety harness as well. But you will wear this harness, and then you'll have some type of platform like this one that you're going to be hunting out of. And essentially you have this harness, you have a tether, and you're kind of hanging suspended. You can alternate between standing or 50% on the harness, 50% on your legs, or you can even just straight sit, and that's where these knee pads come in. Obviously the biggest advantage to this is weight and lack of bulk. You know, because you're talking about carrying, you know, this and this into the woods on your pack or however you choose to do it, compared to, you know, this is my Assault I always use. So the weight aspect for me is very intriguing because, like, obviously I self-film, so I'm going to carry more weight than the average person. So it's kind of nice to be able to shed it where I can. So let's get in and we're going to just do some rough weights, comparison between the Assault and the Predator and so on and so forth. Alright, first of all, let's weigh my Assault. And if you'll notice, I've got a lot of extras on this thing. I've got that third hand bow holder, which is actually pretty darn heavy. I've got the Molly 2 backpack straps and waist belt, and I've got my straps on here. You know, it's ready to go as it sits. When it first came out of the box ready to hunt, it was the 11 pounds, but I would say we're up closer to 14 or 15 now. Alright, let's see what we get for a weight on the Assault. About 15 pounds rigged out. And that's kind of what I expected. Okay, before we get into weighing the Predator and the Mantis and everything, one thing I want to say is, for me personally, if I did go to a saddle, I would have to go to a bigger pack than what I'm using now. You know, I use this pretty small camera day pack, and I have no way to put that saddle and everything I need on that pack, so I would have to go up in pack size. So I'd be gaining some weight back. And one thing to add is, obviously we're still going to have the sticks, so that's going to be added to it. And one thing you will have to add to your stand setup that you don't realize is you'll have to factor in your harness weight, because you're doing away with your safety harness with this, because the saddle acts as your safety harness. So keep that in mind with what these weights come out to be. Okay, we got it all here. This is the Predator, the Mantis, one sis hauler, your tether with your rope man and everything. It's right at about 7.5 pounds. So it's half the weight of the Assault. So if we figure 7.5 pounds lighter, but you don't have to carry your harness with your stand, but I'm going to have to upsize on my pack. We'll just call it a 7.5 pound wash. I would say the weight of the harness would be similar to the weight of the pack. You know, that's being pretty forgiving. I would say the pack might weigh a little bit more than the harness, but We'll say if I went to a saddle setup, or if you went to this saddle setup and you're currently using a Lone Wolf Assault, you're going to lose 7 to 8, maybe 9 pounds, depending on how you decide to pack your saddle in. Okay, as you can see, we've got the saddle on. There's really not much to it. You've got a waist belt here, and then you've got 2 leg loops there, and you've actually got multiple connection points on these. Looks like you can put them up high, which I think if you're walking in it, that seems to be the best one. I may try these out once I'm actually sitting, but you've got some lower ones down here as well that you could use. Looks like you got quite a few options, but I'm going to leave them up here for now. As you'll see, this is your bridge right here. This is basically what does all the heavy lifting. This is AM steel. I want to say that the AM steel they use, this size, is somewhere around rated for 6,000 to 8,000 pounds. This is one of the what they call the cis haulers. It looks like Logan's got this set up to have his tether in here. I'll still use my lineman's belt, obviously, for hanging my sticks and so forth. The one cool thing about these Tethrds is you do have a lot of options, meaning you can add tons of stuff to them. You can do just about anything to them. This particular one has the micro fit adjusters, and that might be something that we actually use a little bit when we get up in the tree. I'm sure we're going to be playing with this thing quite a bit, but I'm going to take a target so we can actually use it a little bit and get a feel for it. On that platform, you can feel that little bit of spring in it, but overall it feels solid. You can definitely feel some flex out towards the ends, but overall pretty solid. One thing I'll say is I feel like there's enough room to stand. I've got size 11 boots, and if I put my tips of my toes against the tree, I've got about 1.5 inches off the back, but it's enough to get situated once you get up here. Okay, so that's part of the reason why I said that tether was so heavy, is Logan has a lineman's belt in there as well. So I've read and heard people say that about head high, forehead high is a good place to start. So that's what we're gonna do. I think he's got his carabiner upside down from the way I would have it personally. So I can already tell right here that this is gonna need to go down for me. I can definitely see you'd be playing with this a lot to figure out what's comfortable for you. Move this down a little, move this back up. So overall, as far as here, it's not really squeezing me too much, not getting much pinch, but it's gonna take some getting used to. I'm trying to think if I wanted to sit. If I wanted to sit, this would have to go down, let it out some. So that would be, so when I do that, I'm getting, squeezing me pretty hard right here, and I'm sure it's just I don't have it adjusted the way I need to. I know some guys will slide this down just a little. So I could also see you sitting this way a lot. Like sideways like this, if you want to just sit, is more comfortable for me, I think, than like this. I do have the knee pads. These are the Arc'teryx, I think. They're pretty popular in the like rock climbing and stuff world. I did wear these on the way in, and they were plenty comfortable enough to wear on the walk in. So when I'm sitting in this thing right now, literally I'm sitting, it does kind of what you would expect. It squeezes really hard on your hips the way I've got it set up currently. Now if I go like this, all that goes away. Like just like this right here is pretty darn comfortable. It definitely squeezes on you a little, but I think that's just going to take some time. I think on the comfort aspect, we'll revisit that later as I monkey with it as I hunt in it this afternoon. But overall, it's pretty simple to get up in it. I think it's just going to take a lot of adjustments to figure out what works for me. Overall, not bad though. Okay, so here is the $1,000,000 question. What's it like to shoot out of? And I think when people look at these saddles, and I know I did, the two things that they worry about: A, comfort; B, how hard is it to shoot out of it. And as far as comfort goes, I think that's relative to what you're used to. I'm sure I can play with it and get a little more comfortable. If you're used to like a Summit Climber or a Millennium, like full seat hang on, this isn't as comfortable as that. It's just not. Anybody that tells you different, I think they're lying to you. Now, compared to say my Lone Wolf, you know, that's meant to be a mobile run and gun, you know, Lone Wolf Assault, small platform, yada. I think for that, it's every bit as comfortable as that, if not more. So I think comfort is gonna be relative to what you're used to. Now, on the shooting aspect, that's what we're getting ready to test. So let me put an arrow in here just in case something crazy happens. Now, my anticipation is that it's gonna be really easy on your strong side. So this way right here. So let's say I got a deer coming in over here. Super easy. Now I start feeling a little unsecure if I go this way too much. Like I feel like if I pivot this way too much, I'm going to swing around the tree. But anything of this, all super easy. I surprisingly feel more stable than what I expected. So strong side shooting, piece of cake. So now we all know deer seem to rarely come from exactly the way we're expecting. So let's just assume we got one on this side. My bow would be hanging right here, so I would grab it, and I think you got a couple options here. I think you'd have to go over the bridge, and you could go like this. If you go that way, that would definitely work if it's at least even with you or closer to the tree. So as long as it doesn't get behind you, you could do it that way pretty easy. Now, let me let this out just a little. Okay. I think your best option is to probably come up onto the platform and try and spin. And you see guys do that and put this tether over their shoulder. Now as far as that movement of coming up to the tree and spinning, I'm sure that would be a work in progress. Now if you do that, it's really manageable. But the problem is going to be getting to that point. So I think for me, if I do that, maybe grab the tether and spin like so. That's probably the easiest. I think if you do go full-blown saddle, I think you're going to have to change how you set up. I think you're going to want to keep everything at least, you know, perpendicular to the way you're facing or closer to the tree. If it gets behind you, things are going to get a little rough. Like maybe strong side and kind of behind you is okay, but now if you start getting over here, that's going to be bad. You're not going to be able to do it just like I did it. This spot, like if you're facing the tree, you're 7 to 7:30, 7 o'clock to 7:30 is going to be really difficult. I think that's going to take some getting used to. I think you have no choice but to get up on the platform like this and do it that way. So first impressions without getting in a tree and hunting out of it so far is setup is pretty easy. You know, you'll have to play with it and figure out what works the best for you as far as comfort and stuff, but you're gonna have to practice shooting out of it, because you know, if I see a deer right here, my first thought is not gonna be to do this. You know, that's just not what I'm thinking. So you're gonna have to be pretty cognizant of how you're setting up. It's gonna be completely opposite of what you're used to. I will say, and I'll touch on this after I get up and actually hunt in it tonight, but I think filming wise, I think it's just going to be different. I think we've got enough room right here that if I mounted it just a little lower than I'm used to, I think it would be fine. As far as my arm and base, I think I have enough room to pass through right here. But we'll have to work on that once we actually get up in a tree. Hopefully you can still hear me over top of all this wind noise. But let's tear this down and actually go get up in a tree for real. Okay guys, we're up in the tree, and as far as getting in the tree, it was about the same as me hanging my lone wolf. Maybe I could see you shaving a minute or two off of it, but I'll say that I don't think it's going to be for me. And but I can see why a lot of guys do like it. If you're like me and you're self-filming a lot, it's just too clunky. Like if you look right here, now I could probably change this around a little bit, but I'm prepared for a shot on my strong side, just like this. Okay, so I got my camera faced here. Like I can't get my bow very easily. Say I do change it, I'll leave this here. But say I keep it on this side to where I can get my bow easily, then I'm passing through underneath, this tether gets in the way. And the biggest thing I didn't like personally is I use my seat on my stand. I lay my pack on the seat and take everything out of it, set the, the base and the arm and set everything up. But trying to get it when it's hanging there and then feeding your base around, it's just clunky. And I feel like right now, I'm sure I could get more familiar with it, and I'm sure I could make it work. It's just, is it worth saving 7 or 8 pounds? And I guess that's what I got to ask myself. But I don't know if $400 is worth saving 7 or 8 pounds. And I feel like right now it could cost me an opportunity just because of how clunky everything is. Now, with that said, if you're not a filmer, if you don't self-film, I think it's awesome. If you're just climbing up a tree, hanging a backpack on, or putting your bow holder on, hanging a backpack on, hanging your bow up, I think it's awesome. Comfort is not an issue. It may be less comfortable than like a summit climber, but it's more comfortable than like a lone wolf hang on. Comfort, not an issue. So I was worried about that initially, not a problem. Hanging it, getting used to it, not a problem. It will take some work on shooting your offside, but it's doable. But just for me and self-filming, I would have to redo everything. I would have to relearn my whole system. Could I make it work? Absolutely. Will I eventually get one? Who knows? I don't hate it, but I don't love it. And I'm like so dialed in with my setup right now that I hate to change everything. But we're gonna hunt out of it. I'm gonna try and maybe see if Logan will let me keep it for a few hunts. And that way I can get used to it and give it a little better review. But that's where I stand right now. If you don't film, I think it's a great option. If you do film, prepare to spend some time just figuring everything out. But that's it for now. If you have any questions, drop them down in the comments. I will answer everything I can. Later.